Welcome back to the 25 Days of Flows, the Power Automate Advent Calendar. We are in our last 5 days of our 25 Days of Flows, and hasn't this been a blast? Today, we're going to talk about location awareness. This is one of those flows that is very special in the way it works, and I'm going to point out several of the heads up that you need to keep in mind. So, first, we're going to find out what our scenario is. When I enter the grocery store, send me my grocery list, right? And so, very simple. We're asking Flo to notice when we get inside of a grocery store. And then when we do get in there, send us the grocery list. I don't know how many of you are amazed that we have this capability. Go back 5 years. How would you do this using, say, Nintex? How would you use it with SharePoint Designer? How would you do this with InfoPath? I mean, I can't think of anything that I have loved in the past, like totally, I'm crazy about all those things, but I can't imagine how I would do this in those scenarios without writing some kind of code. But we're going to do this in just a couple of actions today, and it will just kind of show you the breadth of Power Automate compared to some of the tools of the past, okay? Or even the tools that are current. You can see kind of like what it adds extra that you might not have with other tools. And I really love this. And of course, other tools are expanding and getting better, but I noticed this difference and I want you to notice it too. This is a pretty deep ask here. Make me a workflow that picks up when I go into a grocery store and sends me a grocery list as a push notification to my phone. If somebody were to give you this job and you didn't know Power Automate at all, what did you think you would do? Like, how would you create this? How would you create this scenario, and how much would you charge to do it? Right? I'm talking to some of you consultants out there. But then think about how easy it is with Flow, with Power Automate, to create a flow that does this. And why wouldn't you? Right? So let's look at it really closer. So I'm going to hit later here, and I'm going to go over to the PowerPoint just to look at the connectors. Actually, I'm not going to use SharePoint here. I'm actually going to use Wunderlist just to show you that you have all kinds of options. But I will tell you how to do it with SharePoint as the holder of the groceries. So there's 3 connectors on this screen. The one in the middle, no matter what you put in the middle, is where the groceries are kept. Okay, that could be in SharePoint, that could be in To-Do List, that could be in Wunderlist, that could be in Outlook Task. It could be anywhere. So what you put in the middle of these 2 actions is completely and entirely up to you. This is where you store your groceries. So store groceries, middle piece. Any connector you'd like to use to store your groceries. Where can you create a list? It could be in Excel. It doesn't matter where it is. It's this middle piece. The first piece is the actual trigger. So we're triggering this based on our location. And then the action here is the actual push notification that shows me my grocery list from whatever I use in the middle. Okay, makes sense? All right, let's go back to Flow. And let's think about if this was SharePoint first, because a lot of you are using SharePoint. But I did so many flows with SharePoint. I did several. I didn't want to keep doing SharePoint and not do other connectors. But you would just create your grocery list on SharePoint. That's all you would do, right? If I were going to use Outlook, which is a great idea, you know why? Because I want something that I can hit with my phone as I'm standing online or as I'm waiting on somebody. I could be plugging in my grocery list. So whatever way is easiest for you to, when you're on the run, add a grocery list item, use that, okay? I actually used Wunderlist. Now, why am I using Wunderlist? I have always loved Wunderlist. And now we have To Do, which is Wunderlist better. I'm just going to be transparent. All of us have favorite things, and we all should be able to use our favorite things. I actually like the Wunderlist connector better than the To-Do list connector. And that's why I'm working with Wunderlist. But if you want to use To-Do, go ahead and give that a try. It does require a little bit more actions to get the list of tasks from the list. Um, and so I like Wunderlist best. And that's just a personal opinion. It doesn't mean you should like Wunderlist better, okay? So I'm going to use Wunderlist just because I like the connector. I want to point out, so that was heads up number 1. To-do lists, certain lists that may hold your groceries may not give you exactly what you expect as far as getting back the list. Sorry, I had to pause because my phone was binging, so apologies for that. So now I'm going to show you another heads up for location. So you can see that I've done the flow already, but I'm going to pretend like I'm starting from scratch. And because this is automated, what makes it automated? The trigger is that when we enter the store. So I'm going to click on automated, and I just want to point out, if you search for location, which is the name of this particular connector, you will not see it. It won't come up here. And you can do whatever you want. You can even do the enter action name. It doesn't come up here. So skip here and then type location here, and it will come up. Okay, that was the first heads up. Hope you wrote that down. And now I'm going to name this flow PCC groceries. Now here's the thing. I actually, when I build these flows, I actually don't put this trigger first. I actually build my flow first, and then I add this last. So let me show you, and we'll put this in last. So I'm going to go back to my flow that I made. I just wanted to show you, when you create it new, you won't find location in the instant build my flow story. You have to skip and go straight into the original build my flow story. But I'm going to go in here and hit edit, and you'll notice I have a button up here. And why do I have a button? Because location cannot actually be tested. And what I mean by that is, because the trigger is saying, it's talking about location, like where you are, and as long as you have allowed your phone and your computer to pick up your location, and this doesn't have any action, so I can't show you, but I showed you already the action, the trigger. It's actually not going to trigger no matter what I do until I enter that location. And so what I want to do to build my flow, and this is a tip, you might have a better way of doing this, but what I will do to build my flow is I will put a button up there first, build my flow, testing and everything, to make sure the flow is going to work. And then I'll add my location. So in this case, what did I do? I created a variable for the groceries. And why did I create a variable for the groceries, and why did I use a string instead of an array? Because it's a table, it's a list of groceries. So in a way, this is a table. So why would I make a string array? It's because of how I want to get it back. I want to get it back as a mobile notification. And the only option I have in the mobile notification is a string. So what I need to do is build this string from the task array. Now, if I were going to instead do like an email to myself, which doesn't seem friendly to me for groceries, but let's imagine I wanted to do an email, then I might do HTML, create that HTML table from that array, and then at that point, right, this is the array get task, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But at that point, now I can show an HTML table in my email, because emails handle HTML tables really well. But this mobile notification gives you a text string. It does not give you an opportunity to show an array. And so what I do is I take the array and I break it down into a string that can be used in the mobile. So this is why the end result is why I've chosen to use a string variable here. And only the end result, okay? That's why. So now that I have that string variable set up, remember, it's like the kid's toy. Those kids' toys that you put the square into the square hole, the triangle into the triangle hole, and the circle into the circle hole when you're a toddler or a baby. You learn how to fit those shapes into their proper holes. Variables are much like that toy in that there has to be a hole that matches that variable type or that piece type. And that piece type will only fit into a hole that matches it, right? So string variables can only hold strings, array variables only hold arrays, and so on. Okay, Boolean only holds true, false. So you have to kind of make sure you set up your hole for the right thing. Okay, and we're just going to, because if we're going to use this mobile, we want a string. All right, hope that made sense. Then I'm going to use my Wunderlist task. Now again, I mentioned to you that I like Wunderlist connector better, and I'll show you why. And this is just, again, this is my opinion. You don't have to have it. So if I click on Wunderlist, I get add a comment to a task, create a list, create a note, create a subtask, create a task, get files, get lists, get notes, get reminders, get subtasks, get task comments, get task. Look at all the actions I have with Wunderlist. All right, and this is why I like this connector. Whereas the to-do connector is a little bit, it's, I guess because it's in preview, right? We have less actions. So if I go to do, now I've got 3 actions, right? And if I want to iterate through my task in a list, it's a little bit more complicated, right? So love to do for every day, but adore the Wunderlist connector. It's a cool connector. It works. It has it has many actions, which means I'm probably going to be able to get done what I want to get done best. Okay. So again, that's all my opinion, not Microsoft's. That's just Audrie there. I kind of share me every now and then. All right. So then once I get those tasks, this get tasks as for a list is going to, first, it gives me a place where I can drop down and choose my list. And in Wunderlist, to show you, I have a grocery list. So it's just called groceries. And then I have this here and I carry it around on my phone. And so it's very easy for me to add an item from my to-do, from my Wunderlist app on my phone. And I end up with these items in my list. And then if I go here, now it's going to list for me every list I have. And that's another difference if you use to-do. I just want to point this out to you. The to-do connector has something called get a to-do, but it doesn't give you a drop down. You see there? And this is where this one gets a little bit more complicated. So I chose Wunderlist for the sake of time. All right. So now that we've got that list, and you also have the option, do you want the things that are completed to come back? Like an instant filter, I don't even want to see what's already done. If I marked my milk got, then don't show me milk, right? Makes sense to me. Now I have that list. I want to go through that list and make that string I was telling you about. So as I apply to each using the result of the get tasks, I iterate through that list and I return back the title of the task, which in this case is just the thing that I want to buy. That this X, that's the title field in Wunderlist. So I take that title field, I put a semicolon and a space after it, just so that the words aren't all mushed up together. And now I've put each item in that list into this variable because I used an action called append to string variable. And again, you won't even see an array variable in this dropdown. It only will show you the string variables. So if you ever notice this dropdown doesn't show you the variable that you have up here, go check the type of the variable and make sure you're appending to the right type. So because if I type append here, you will notice that I can append to an array or append to a string. You have to pick the right one, because they each will show you what's available in that type. Basically, the flow is done, and I'm going to return it back to me on my phone as grocery list, and I just put the variable, because this built this variable to have the right stuff in it. So now if we test this, and again, if I had started this flow with the geolocation, then it would be harder for me to test this because I can't pretend I'm somewhere I'm not. Flow's not going to handle it that way. But on my phone just now, my grocery list popped up. I can show you what my grocery list on my phone looks like. It looks like this right here. I don't care about that extra semicolon, but you could actually use substring to remove that last semicolon. I'm not going to remove it. I'm very happy with that like that. That's going to be beautiful for my grocery list. So since I now know that this will work, like the flow is not broken, now I can delete this trigger, something we recently gave you, I think in this year, this current calendar year. Before you couldn't delete a trigger. Now you can. So thank you, Flow team, for letting us do that. And now I can look for location and add that. And I'm going to see triggers only when I enter or exit an area. And you'll see this blue button, create trigger region. I'm going to click that. And you'll see I have two tabs, address and coordinates. I can enter either one. All right. So what I'm going to do is go find out the address of PCC in Redmond. And then once I have the address to PCC in Redmond, now you know where I shop. Sometimes. And I shop there because they focus on two things that are important to me. The quality of the food as far as it being not full of trash, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the commerce of food that's really bad for you. So it's like a lot of junk in your food. And so they focus on making sure your food is clean and organic. But secondly, they also focus on the care of animals when it comes to meats and fish. So with fish, they're making sure that they're focusing on those that aren't endangered or dangerous. And then when it comes to meat, you know, take for instance chickens. Are they throwing them all into a pen and kicking them around, treating them like trash? Or are they free range? And so the treatment of animals are very important to me, and the quality of the food I eat is also important to me. So that's why I like PCC. And I wasn't trying to upsell PCC. That's just my thought. And I don't always shop there. I shop there most of the time. All right, so now that I've copied that address, I'm going to paste it here. And now when you paste the address, here's the thing. You're not done. Because notice this map didn't change. You have to also select the address. And now it will set itself. Now, if you notice in the middle, this is in meters. So the radius around the address is right now 192 meters. You do not want to zoom in too close. So if I hit this plus sign and I start zooming in, notice that the number of meters is reducing. So now I'm in a radius of 24 meters. I'm pretty sure it's meters. So when you're moving in real life outside, it's possible you'll pass this zone like on one of these edges here, and it totally won't pick up where you are because you passed it too quickly, or you passed it on one of these edges here. So this square represents PCC. If I go in through this door right now, it won't pick me up. I'm too close. I have to be in this special spot, and who knows how that would happen in these stores that we have in the United States that are huge. So here's what you do. You back up. Okay, you back up. You don't want to be too close to the address. Back up, I'd say at a minimum 100 meters, right? Don't get too close because you can actually pass right through and it doesn't pick it up. All right, so then once you do that, now hit save. So you are paying attention that your map has changed, that it looks like where you go shopping, and that there's not too close, okay? And then I'm going to press save. Okay, so now the blue button that said create trigger region now says edit trigger region because it's all good to go. So basically all I have to do is now save this. And I know the flow will work because we've already tested it. All right. So I'm not going to do that right now, like go run to PCC, but I will ask you to give this flow a try. All right. Take some of the tips I gave you, use whatever you want. If you want to use SharePoint to hold it, just remember you need to create a list in SharePoint called whatever you want to call it and put your grocery list in there. Okay. Whatever your source is, just make sure there's a list of groceries there. And then when you go to Flow, that's the connector that you'll choose to get your list of items from. And that's another thing that I love about Power Automate is that your scope is so broad, right? In other tools that I've used in the past, I think of SharePoint Designer. My scope was the SharePoint site, not even the site collection, right? When it comes to Flow, you can hit any third-party application you want. You can store your data as you wish, and then Flow will get it for you and put it on your phone for you when you need it. In this case, as soon as you enter the grocery store. So I wish you the happy holiday. I hope this wasn't too complicated for you. I have been getting harder as I go. In these last 5 days, you may notice some complexities. Those of you that are brand new, please go back and watch the first 10 days at least to get a good, strong foundation on the things that we're doing. And try out learning. So if you hit the question mark from Flow, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to make sure I save, and that says saved, because the error message that pops up sometimes is confusing to people. But I'm going to go to this question mark here, and I'm going to click Learn. Those of you that are new to Flow should always do this learning module, Get Started with Power Automate. Take this learning module and complete it. This is the first one. I wouldn't start creating flows until you take this module. And the reason is not because Flow isn't easy enough, but because you need these foundation components in your head that will help you troubleshoot when you run into problems. If you skip over some of this beginner stuff, you'll run into a situation where you won't know how to get out of it. But just give yourself a little foundation. And you can go ahead and it has everything. It has more complex flows, even has admin Power Automate for you to learn. And every time you take a module, it gives you some points. So you even get to like see yourself grow as you learn the product better and better. Some of these last 5 days might be complicated, but if you feel that, go take the learning. I mean, just walk through them. It's really easy to do. It even kind of gives you backup blogs very often to help you. So try it out. At the end of each module, you get a little test to see how well you understood the key points. Take the test. And if you don't pass the test, it's not a big deal. You can take it as many times as you want. But it lets you know, okay, you didn't really get this point, so go do it again. And you don't have to tell anybody you didn't get it. You can keep your privacy on how well you're doing, but this will actually help you make progress. So when I say make progress, I mean less trial and error, because we want to be able to create a flow without having to do a lot of trial and error, okay? So that's my recommendation to you. I'm going to get off my soapbox, say happy holiday, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as the Power Automate Advent Calendar continues.